You guys all know that I hate OBC because OBC is fake news, but I gotta say, this intro was really cool. And now let's start the analysis of the new DLC trailer for Ace Combat 7: Skies Unknown.
A month has passed since the Erusian declaration of war.
First, let's get some context on where this trailer is taking place because it will be important later on when I compare with the other trailers. We can see that this is still in the beginning of the Lighthouse War, precisely on June the 6th, 2019, as you can see on the date by the computer. And finally, OBC has a face, Mark Richard, the fake news in person. Now, as you can see in the computer screen, there are lots of articles that, although they are hard to read, we can enhance them and get some very important information. Let's start first with this report on the construction of the Yuktobanian super submarines known as the Scinfaxi class submarines. This report outlines that the Scinfaxi class submarines, the Scinfaxi and the Rimfaxi from Ace Combat 5, were commissioned into the Yuktobanian Navy in 1995. However, there was a third submarine. This was supposed to be the Super-Scinfaxi class submarine, which would span between 600 to 700 meters, way larger than the regular Scinfaxi, which was about 400 meters. This Super-Scinfaxi was built secretly at the Oktyabrsk dockyard in Yuktobania. Just so you have an idea, this dockyard was so secret it was mainly underground, but Ocean intelligence was able to detect the movement and delivery of weapons to this dockyard. Now let's jump to the bottom left of the screen where we have an article written by our friend Albert Jeanette, you know, the journalist from Ace Combat 5 and Ace Combat X, one of the many callbacks in this trailer. So he's now working for the Strange magazine Gaze, and he is reporting on some Erusian news. I want to start with the ending of the article to preserve chronological order. So, he says that the Kingdom of Erusia purchased the Super-Scinfaxi submarine from Yuktobania through a private company as a scrap. But instead of destroying the submarine to resell, you know, the metals and components, the submarine was refurbished by the Erusian Navy and became the largest nuclear submarine in Strangio. Now, it's interesting to note that Erusia and Yuktobania have somewhat of a relationship. Remember that Yuktobania got the XO2 back in the Circum-Pacific War, and also according to this new trailer, the Yuktobanian Prime Minister said that Erusia had reasons to rationalize the war. So maybe Yuktobania was kind of an Erusian friend. Now, what makes this Super-Scinfaxi submarine so special other than being the largest nuclear submarine in Strangio? According to the article on the top right of the screen, apparently this submarine was a violation of the START 2. Now, we don't know exactly what START 2 means, but it seems like some treaty against special or super weapons in Strangio. And we do get some specifications for it in that same article. It says that this submarine can carry 256 nuclear warheads, of each 200 kilotons, which is a lot of firepower. And just for the sake of comparison, this single submarine has more destructive power than the entire UK's nuclear arsenal. Another notable feature in this submarine that we can see on the bottom left article is that it has the capability of generating oxygen from water, so it can stay underwater for an extended period of time, limiting it only to the food supply of the crew.
And as the conflict escalates,
Hey Alex, think there'll be any movement?
We join our correspondent.
No. Chances of regaining control of the space elevator are at 35%.
No. I'm talking about the submarine that was missing, and its captain.
No movement in the 215 days since their transfer to the reserve fleet.
So now let's touch on this disappearance of the submarine, which is actually mentioned in the article on the left side of the screen that we saw earlier. This submarine is called Alicorn, which is the name we saw in the previous trailer, and we'll talk about that later on. On November 3rd of 2018, the Alicorn was moved into the Erusian Navy's reserve fleet. But on November 10th of 2018, which is way before the Lighthouse War began, there was an incident regarding the Alicorn that took place on the Spring Sea. According to the article on the left side of the screen, the Alicorn went missing. The Erusian Navy issued a statement saying that no radioactive leak was detected in the Spring Sea, and that indicated that the submarine was still intact, or that the crew was still alive because of the oxygen generating system that it had. However, because of the depth and the terrain underneath the water of the ocean, a rescue mission would be very hard to accomplish, so it was called off. Therefore, as this trailer is still happening, the submarine and its captain, Matias Torres, is still missing. We have already seen Matias' face back in the very first DLC mission trailer, and we now can see it again, and according to Kono on my interview with him back at PAX South, if you recall that, he said that the antagonist on the Ace Combat 7's DLC missions would be the most evil character in the entire Ace Combat history. And I would say that a guy with ICBMs and 256 nuclear warheads could do some pretty evil things.
And this follows Erusia effectively declaring most of the Eusian continent and up to 80% of the IUN bases there to be under
Erusia's
its
pretty
control.
fired up. Are they really gonna do nothing with that crazy weapon?
Define crazy. The captain and his ship aren't part of the Erusian combat doctrine.
So Alex, the virtual assistant, already talks about Matias as if he had his personality or behavior known.
Yeah, and that's exactly the problem. Maybe it'd be different if there was some big upset. Just maybe. Ooh, I saw this video at our cafeteria in college. That was 2004, so I was 15.
First, that callback for Ace Combat 4 was pretty cool. Second of all, this guy David was already in college or university when he was 15, which is very impressive by today's standards and maybe explains why Stranger's technology is so advanced. Now, some of you have said on Twitter that maybe he was referring to college as a boarding schools, which would be a perfectly normal age, but look at how the virtual assistant replies as if he was boasting about his educational accomplishments.
Both a boast and an analogy, right, David?
This is around the time I got this job.
So David got his job, which we don't know exactly what it is, but is based in Aurad, which is Osia's capital, in 2010. And as of right now, doing the math, he would be around 30 years old in 2019 and still holds the same job.
With our own former President Harling instrumental in the reconstruction project.
Which reminds me, that document's release was slated for this year, no?
No, 2020.
That's a reference to the release of the documents regarding the Rosgray Squadron from Ace Combat 5. So you see, David is very knowledgeable about all these topics.
Ah yes, the Belkan War scandal, in which Osia
Oh,
allegedly
they're going back quite a bit.
annexed Belkan's southern territory.
You know, I like the crazy weapons of this era. The ones made by the South Belkan Munitions Factory.
David is a man of culture.
They're still giving technical assistance to Erusia.
And so now, if the Austrian government
Yeah,
plans on
the Osia too. We're all pawns in their great game,
no choice
including this guy.
So the Arsenal bird was built with Belkan technology, and you see, David is very aware of Belka's influences in all these different countries.
class defense system, Arsenal Bird.
The media got wind of Harling's whereabouts. Whoa, someone just slipped past the space elevator's radar network. Does that raise our chances of success?
No, still 35%.
Just to point out the obvious, because some people didn't understand, that's Trigger arriving to initiate the rescue for President Harling.
Well, what if the guy who just flew right in was really crazy?
Define crazy. Still standing at 35%. If you can quantify the uncertainty for me, I can recalculate with higher precision.
Either way, there's gonna be an upset.
We'll bring you more information on
Things are finally going to move.
That's the end of the newest trailer, but let me bring in the previous ones so you can see how they connect to each other.
It's a requiem. Set off as soon as we're ready.
September the 4th, 2019 at 2:55 p.m. Keep that time in mind. And let's compare with the very first DLC mission trailer. So this new trailer, according to the calendar, takes place on September the 18th. And you can see on the sticky note on the right side, it was September the 4th at 3 p.m. The same time as the first DLC operation, Operation Signtown, takes place. And then we see another note right below it that says September the 10th. Which to me shows a high likelihood that the second DLC mission will take place on September the 10th. And the third mission will happen sometime after September the 18th. Now for context with the regular campaign of the game, the DLC missions number 1 and 2 will take place between missions 13 Bunker Busters and mission 14 KP Rainy Assault. However, we don't know about the DLC mission number 3, and the date is very interesting because as David is writing his report, that's one day before the invasion of Farbanti, the capital city of Erusia. Now let's take a look at the titles of his report because they make more sense this time. I think the Return of the Lost is a clear reference to the return of the Alicorn submarine after all those 200 days where it was submerged and was apparently missing from the Erusian Navy. And I think this one is a reference to Harling's assassination. I think this one could be a reference to how Erusia was able to hack the IFF signals with Erusia's satellites and was able to infiltrate their forces or drones as if they were Osean. Since we were talking about nuclear submarines, I think this is a pretty clear reference to Alicorn's ICBMs and their nuclear warheads. And that's what I have so far on the DLC missions on my analysis. Now if you want me to make a prediction or guess what's going on, I would say this David guy is somewhat of an analyst for Osea's intelligence based on how he's aware of all these different events, and he was reading also the Yuktubani documents on the submarines. I think he may have clearance on that, but not clearance enough to get the Rosgre's documents. And regarding the evil guy, Matias Torres, I think as a captain of the nuclear submarine, the Alicorn, I think he's trying to hold Osea hostage with this 10 million victims with his nuclear ICBMs. And I guess he's threatening to use them if they invade Farbanti or something like that. But that's just my prediction. We'll see soon if I'm right or wrong. Let me know what you guys think. We don't have a release date yet for this trailer, but it should come in the next few months. This year, hopefully. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.